One of her pet peeves was when students did not do their homework. Her speech will cover how she handled that and how the bell curve was involved. She will also cover other uses of the bell curve in her speech entitled, "The Bell Curve, Is It Relevant?" Please welcome past area director, Kathleen Lekadou.
Sorry, I'm not used to this. Sorry. All right. How many of you have ever heard of the bell curve? Okay, wonderful. A lot of you. So you know the concept is pretty simple. So when I learned it in college and in my education statistics course. And it basically showed that if you gave a group of students a test, that it would fall in this range. You would have your low, which is the failing, the average, and the top. Now, I found this to be true throughout my teaching career because every year, the first test, the same thing happened. And every first marking period, the same thing happened. And I wanted to find out, how can I change this? Because I don't like my kids to fail. So I'll give you a couple of examples. I had a student who, he was very quiet, not disrespectful, but he was never doing his homework. So finally I called in his parents, and his father came in, and we had a conference with the principal. And during the conversation, we found out that his mother had died 2 years ago. So at the time he was 10, and now he's 12. And I said, well, that's the problem. He's still grieving. So we got him the help, and during the year I saw his grades rising. But I saw something even better. He was smiling and talking to his classmates. So that was wonderful. Now the rest of the bunch, I'm like, what's up with them? Some of them, they were just lazy. Some of them had like, what's the purpose for education? So I had to haggle with them and find ways in which they would get to do their homework. And then I found a simple system. It was simply this. Hey, if you do 5 homeworks, I will give you a homework pass here. Okay? And homeworks are worth 5 points. So the day you miss a homework, you just hand in that homework pass. And you could use it any time in the year. Right? But then I saw that some of the kids, especially those who were in the 20%, were not using this homework pass. But I wanted them to reap the benefits of their reward. So I came up with this. Hey, not only can you use that homework pass for homeworks, you have the option of putting in 5 points towards your test or a lab. Now these savvy kids, what they did was they waited before the marking period ended, and they saw where they could strategically place these homework passes. So sometimes they would hand 5 just for one test or for a lab, and then that boosted up their grades. Now I noticed something though, that my bell curve still didn't change. But I was not disappointed, because what happened was that if these kids were in the 50s, now they moved up to the 60s. And then by the third term, they moved up to the 70s and in the 80s. While they were moving up, this group is moving up. So the bell curve was still there, but in a positive direction. Now I'm no longer teaching, and I find myself in the presence of a lot of business owners here and people that work for businesses. And I wondered, do they use the bell curve in the business world? And I found out that they did. So I found out that the bell curve has been in existence since 1733. But in an article I found in LinkedIn, it showed that in the 1980s, in an article called Bell Curve in Performance Management, that the chairman and CEO of General Electric decided to use this curve. But what he did was that he would take these 10% and lay them off, because he wanted the company's performance to be well. So a lot of companies started doing this. But what they found out was that, well, according to a curve, these people now are the new low. So it's shifting this way. And the top people were like, well, I'm no longer a shining star, so I'm going to leave and go where I could be a star. Then years later, some companies are like, well, this is not working. So another article in LinkedIn showed the myth of the bell curve. And so what they decided to do was, instead of getting rid of our people, let's take these 10%, let's put them somewhere in the company where they will grow and become a star. And what happened was that the company would grow. Now, in Toastmasters, believe it or not, we do have a bell curve, because we have what is called the Distinguished Club, we have the Select Distinguished, and the President's Distinguished. So which means those clubs would fall near the top 20 and everybody else is average. Now we see that if a club is only focusing on getting these points, they do not really move up. But clubs who focus on their people do. For example, in our club, look how we have DTM Carson Schaefer. He came from being an engineer who gave boring speeches to vibrant ones. We have Benjamin Urrutia, whose English has improved over the years. We have Regina Resende, who came. She only wanted to just listen to speeches. And a few weeks ago, she went up. She gave the most fabulous impromptu speech. Yes. Look at Omaira Lopez. She came in. She would find any job to do except speak. And now she's an evaluator today. And she's here because of our growth master, our beloved Tim Rickey. Because he said to anybody, if you want to work with me, you have to join Toastmasters. There's no haggling about it. Now with that, I leave you with the question, is the bell curve relevant? I leave you to answer that.